name is Alex Langer. I am CEO and President of Sierra Madre Gold and Silver. We are an exploration and future development company that is focused on acquiring high value and quick to production assets in Western Mexico. Corporately, our 3 to 5 year goal is to have 50 to 100 million ounces of silver in inventory, as well as production from 2 to 3 mines, utilizing a centralized facility, something similar to like a centralized hub and spoke mining scenario, something that's modular, which should allow for a lower capex to start, but can grow as we increase production or as new projects come online. To date, we've acquired 2 projects. The first project being Tepic. We acquired 100% of Tepic from the main principal of Cream Minerals about 4 years ago. Cream in its heyday had a market cap of well over $100 million, but more importantly, they spent about $20 million in the ground, including over 31,000 meters of drilling, a bunch of metallurgical work that came out positive. There was a number of historic resource and I-43-101 historic resource reports done on the project. The 2 most recent are the ones we use. One was just over 10 million ounces of silver equivalent, and the other one being 18 million ounces of silver equivalent, just depending on which cutoff grade you wanted to use. The split in value of Tepic is about 70% silver and 30% gold. In July of last year, I guess July 2021, we were fortunate enough to acquire the La Tigra project from Grupo Mexico. For those of you that don't know, Grupo is a multinational, multi-billion-dollar company. We've been eyeing this project for quite a while. It took a couple of years to get the project, but we feel the potential is just excellent. I know Greg Liller, who you'll hear from shortly, has had his eye on this project for over 10 years. Reason being, well, historically, La Tigra has been in and out of production. It's about 100 years in total. Most recently, it was in the early 90s. But what really attracted us is the grade. The head grade was over 10 grams gold and over 350 grams silver. There's been no modern mining exploration techniques done at La Tigra until now. We've done some trenching and we're going to start drilling there pretty soon, which is quite exciting. So we're really quite excited about both of our projects. Corporately, we still have over $11 million in cash. Management and founders control well over 40%. We'll get into that in a little bit. But what's most important about us is our technical team. They truly are world class, and I'll get into that now. It's led by Greg Liller, who's our executive chairman. He's also our chief operating officer. Greg has been active in Mexico since 1993. He's an exploration geologist by training, but has ran and operated numerous mines. He's actually had 7 projects become mines, which is, again, truly incredible. Some of the successes on the M&A side have been Gamma Lake, which has been Gamma Gold, Mex Gold. He's also been a part of Prime Mining, Genco, just to name a few. One thing that always has been common with any of his successes is that any of the M&A transactions always happen after production. So that's why we're focused on production. We're not afraid of it. We're going to push forward through our current projects and also look at future acquisitions if they make sense. A couple other members of the technical team I'll quickly touch on. First is Greg Smith. Greg is our QP. He's a geologist. He was most recently CEO of Calibre Mining, where they acquired La Limon and El Verdad from in Nicaragua. Greg's awesome. He's Spanish speaking. He's spent the majority of his career in Latin America, and he's drilled out over 12 million ounces of gold. Another gentleman I'd like to point out is Luis Saenz. Luis comes from us from Frisco, where he was subdirector there. He was actually managing, I think, 13 or 14 projects there. And he's just amazing at siloing each of these projects and building teams kind of underneath them. So we have 2 projects now with full built out teams. We're not using any consultants or anything like that, and we have the ability to expand at a moment's notice. I come from a capital markets background, started at Canaccord Genuity, left there in 2008, and have been founding companies kind of ever since. Most recently, a couple companies I've been part of, one being Prime Mining, which has done quite well recently, and then another one, Millennial Lithium, which should be off trading about 10 days. We accepted an offer from Lithium Americas for just under $500 million, which is quite exciting. And with that, I'll pass you over to Greg Liller to walk you through some of our projects and what he likes about them.
Our flagship is Tepic. As Alex said, we acquired it a couple of years ago privately. One of the things that really impressed me about the project was its infrastructure. We're surrounded on all sides by paved highways. In fact, it's a paved road until the last 3 kilometers to the project. This is very important because I've had projects that are out in the middle of nowhere, and they're much more expensive and much more difficult to develop. The land package is over 2,600 hectares. The previous operator, Cream, focused their efforts basically solely within the central area, and they never did visit the eastern areas, and just very preliminary work here on the northern area. When I first visited the project, I was impressed by the amount of alteration that was there. The 4 structures that contain the historic resource just weren't enough to account for all of that. So the first thing we did was obtain satellite imagery and have a topo map built. This had never been done before. And we did project-wide mapping and reconnaissance sampling. And again, that had never been done before. The results of that in the central area, where we found over 10 kilometers worth of breccias and mineralized veins versus the 3.5 that they had found before. Last summer, we did an RC drilling program, essentially twinning core holes. There was some question about core recovery in the previous third-party historic resources, so we felt it to be necessary to confirm that, and the results came back very similar. The one thing we did find, though, were 6 additional zones, and that in part is due to the fact that Cream did not analyze the entire drill core. So that even in the drilled areas, we have a lot of good potential. We've had a trenching program underway at Tepic for some time now, the results of which we're using to plan our drilling program. We've had some excellent results. The Trench 11 gave us over 9.2 meters of half a kilo silver equivalent. This is important because the drilling in the past had actually been quite a bit down dip. So all of this is open for resource expansion on the up dip side. The eastern portion of the area, as I said, the previous operators had never really even visited. When we first got there, we found our Taunas structure. I'd like to say it's a new discovery, but there are some old colonial workings on it, so it's been mined in the past. Right now, with its secondary structures, totals over 1.5 kilometers in strike length, and it's proven to be a fairly complex system, which is good. The more broken the rock, the more that enhances your potential to develop good ore bodies. The northern area, again, it received very little work, mostly because it's got a pretty heavy basalt cover. And the flat area that you can see there is sugarcane fields. But sticking up through that basalt cover, the younger basalt, and eroded, where gullies have eroded through it, we found several structures, the most important of which are the 2 Estasis. Structures 1 and 2. Estasis 1 has returned over 600 grams of silver equivalent in reconnaissance sampling. We've now put some trenches in there, and fortunately, the basalt cover in areas turned out to be only a meter or 2 thick. So that's going to receive a lot more attention. We are currently planning drilling in this area. The historic resources, Alex mentioned, the most recent one was by WGM, had over 10 million ounces. The one thing that really caught my eye, though, was the widths. Widths like that are amenable to bulk tonnage type mining, both surface and underground. So we hope to be able to develop this at a fairly low cost mining scenario. Metallurgy is extremely important. If you can't get the metal out of the rock, why bother spending any money there? Cream had done a series of tests. The bottle roll test came out pretty typical for these silver gold deposits in the Sierra Madres. But what really caught my eye was the 90% recovery that they achieved using flotation, followed by cyanide leaching. Tepic being a silver dominant system, this will be quite important to the economics. We should, by the end of the month, we plan on mobilizing a drill rig to the project, core rig. Generally, once I get my hands on a rig, I don't let go of it. And I just keep drilling as long as we're producing good results. La Tigra as Alex said, we just acquired that. I've had my eye on this project since the mid 2000s. Historically, around the beginning of 1900s, there were over 2,500, estimated maybe as high as 5,000 people panning gold here. The underground mines that were developed on it were very high grade. The most recent operator averaged over 10 grams gold and 358 silver. It meets my infrastructure requirements. It's about 8 kilometers off a paved highway. And we were very fortunate that Grupo entered into the agreement with us. As Alex said, they've only had agreement with one other junior company. And so we're very proud to say that they do have confidence in our abilities. Again, La Tigra never had any really detailed district scale mapping on it. So again, we did the same thing, acquired satellite imagery, had a topo map constructed from that, and immediately launched a property-wide mapping and reconnaissance program. What became apparent very soon was that the property was not just limited to the El Tigre mine vein, but it consisted of a series of stacked breccias and veins with surrounding stockworking. We've launched our trenching program here, just as we're doing at Tepic to facilitate the planning of the drill program. And our idea is to drill 10 or 15 holes at Tepic, move the rig to La Tigra, 10 or 15 while we wait for assay results from Tepic, and then just keep bouncing the rig back and forth. It's a problem everyone's experiencing is the assay turnaround. It's just really difficult, but I will not offset holes without benefit of assay. You can waste a lot of money doing that. So the trenching program thus far has yielded some really good results. We've got some nice widths to our mineralization, and we're generally finding a higher grade core to some of this, to the veins. The one thing we've had to resort to because of assay results being so far in arrears is we're taking an old-fashioned method. We're panning our samples now to help us direct where the next trenches are going to be, and it's working quite well. We do have a fair amount of visible gold here, so I've got very high hopes for this project. Alex?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. As I mentioned earlier, really tight ownership structure. Myself, Greg, the rest of the founders and management, we're actually well over 40% now. 64 million shares outstanding, fully diluted is 66 million, 11 million in cash in the bank. We do have some institutions that are shareholders, which is great. They came in at pretty small levels the first round with the full expectation that as we push our projects forward or to acquire new projects, they'll be there to put in more capital and increase their shareholdings as a percentage. As I mentioned earlier, we have $11 million that's Canadian in cash. The programs we're about to launch, there'll be news on that this month, are going to be pretty extensive. The plan is to spend between $4 to $5 million, depending on when Greg gives up the drill rig. We will see. The goal is to have an NI 43-101 resource report at Tepic by mid-year. If things go extraordinarily well, then that can be pushed into Q3, which is not a problem. Just means the drilling is going really, really well. And then at La Tigra, we really have a chance at discovery here. We've had those trenches that have come in quite positively, and it'll be exciting to see what they can come up with the drilling. In the meantime, we do have a lot of results that are pending. Again, unfortunately, it's taking a little bit of time because of the assay turnaround. But we're going to be really, really busy here in 2022, and the really exciting stuff starts in the next couple of weeks. Greg and myself will be around if there's any questions after the further presentations. Thank you very much.